Week 11 preview in the NFL playoff odds. Hello, welcome to the November 14th edition of the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast and live stream. I am Aaron Schatz. You know me as the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier, and you are hopefully subscribed to the Mike Tanier Substack at miketanier.substack.com. And we are going to talk about a really big week. Really good matchups for week 11. It's starting with Commanders and Eagles tonight, and then the top four teams in the AFC going up against each other on Sunday with the Bills, Chiefs, and the Ravens, Steelers. But first, I want to remind you about our sponsor, and that is Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is off and running, and there's no better way to enjoy the game than with Underdog Fantasy. It is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing app in the industry. And Underdog offers a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first time deposit. It's really fun. It's really easy. And you get up to $1,000 on the first time deposit. There's no reason not to do it. Head over to Underdog for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with code FTN. That's up to $1,000 extra. NFL season is in full swing, and there's no better way to enjoy it than with Underdog Fantasy. And a reminder that if you are with us at 11 a.m. Eastern on Mondays and Thursdays, we will take your questions and comments live as we talk about the games of the week.
Yes.
How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. You were asking off camera why I didn't get a football from Threads.
Yes. Why didn't Threads? So you are the evangelist for Threads football usage. Why did you not get one of their little footballs?
Well, there's some crazy rumors running around that they sent me a DM in January and I never responded to it, and that they followed up a couple times, but I never saw them. And they were trying to email me, but they were trying to email me at the Messenger. So
because the DMs are in Instagram, not in Threads. I think you can't actually DM in Threads.
Correct. So maybe there was a little boomer moment. So after I spent a day complaining all across Threads I did not get a football, I was told that like they had one waiting for me for many, many weeks. So I'm hopeful to get my football. Also, again, Blue Sky. I know a lot of us are also on.
A lot of people are moving to Blue Sky this week. Yes.
Yes. So look for Aaron and I and Brian Knowles and all the FO team at your favorite non-cesspool of disinformation.
As we figure out where is going to be the proper social network for football discussion, we are at this point, I'm posting everything on 3 different sites.
Yes, which is fun. Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's just copy, paste, copy,
paste, and then you check them all, and then you check them all again, and like 3 hours will pass.
Yeah. All right, let's do Thursday night. Commanders at Eagles. That's tonight's game. It's a really good one. The division odds with an Eagles win, 73% Eagles.
Yes.
The division odds with the Commanders win, 78% Commanders.
Yeah.
We have the Commanders slightly higher than the Eagles in DVOA. Plus, the Commanders also are a little bit better on offense, which is a little bit more predictive than defense. But I mean, basically, these teams are even right now. And so this game is absolutely huge. I will say I saw something out there pointing out that the Commanders defense and the Eagles defense might be the 2 best pass defenses in the league over the last 4 weeks. I'd like to point out that I am not a big fan of over the past 4 weeks stats.
Yeah.
I think that is too small a sample size. I don't think there's any evidence that the last 4 weeks means a particular that much more than the 4 weeks before it, like a little bit more, but not that much more. And mostly the reason the Commanders' pass defense is much better in the last 4 weeks is because they clobbered Carolina in week 7.
Mm-hmm.
And they've played an easy schedule over the last few weeks. So their pass defense over the last 4 weeks goes from minus 19% without the opponent adjustments to minus 5% with the opponent adjustments. So overall, the Commanders' defense has improved against the pass, but not really against the run.
Right.
No Marshawn Lattimore still.
Right.
They still struggle against number 1 receivers. Plus, like I said, they haven't improved against the run. The Eagles are 7th running the ball. Hi, I'm Saquon Barkley. Hello.
Hello, Saquon Barkley. Hello. I posted some things earlier on one of the networks. I forget which one. In terms of yards after contact in the running game, the Eagles and Commanders are 1 and 2. I think it's Commanders and Eagles are 1 and 2 in yards after contact in the running game. That's Saquon and Jalen Hurts on one side. That's Eckler, Robinson, Daniels, McNichols on the other side. Now, so you flip that and say both these teams are going to get yards after contact. What about the defenses? Eagles defense, 6th best at preventing yards after contact in the running game. They've only missed 11 tackles in the running game. Commanders, 6th worst at preventing yards after contact in the running game with 31 missed tackles in the running game. A lot of those missed tackles are in the secondary. That, you know, Bobby Wagner ain't missing tackles, but there's other guys out there who are not getting to guys. That looks like a running game advantage for the Eagles, even though both running games are strong.
Absolutely. This is like the strength against strength with the pass. These are 2 top 10 pass rushes.
Yes.
By the ESPN pass rush win rate against 2 of the top 3 pass blocking lines.
Right.
Jaden Daniels faces the lowest pressure rate in the league by FTN Stats Hub. Jalen Hurts faces a little bit more, but he runs it. He's a guy who tends to run into his own pressure.
Yes.
But the Eagles have some particular strengths. They're very strong against tight ends.
Okay.
Which is good against.
They know this guy. They know this guy.
There's very strong against running backs as receivers, which is good against Eckler.
Yes.
And they're number 1 in DVOA against deep passing.
Because Slay has been healthy, the 2 rookies are really coming around. At the last time you saw Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean was against the Falcons in the 4th quarter, it's different now. They are really coming into their own. Now, and by the way, when you talk about who the Commanders have faced in the last couple of weeks, we all know the Eagles have also faced Cooper Rush and the Sunshine, and Daniel Jones and these other guys. Still, when you look at it, you can see growth in their secondary.
Yeah, I mean, those rookies are good. They have a good rookie class. And this is an interesting – so the line on this game is Eagles by 3.5.
Yeah, I like the Eagles tonight. There's so many things that to me look like the Eagles are trending there. Jordan Mailata is back. So
yes, that's a big one. Yep.
Left tackle Jordan Mailata is back. That is helpful. It's a team that's getting healthier at the right time. You're seeing growth from their cornerbacks. The Commanders, again, they still struggle in that secondary. They've been using Mike Sainstrell, who looks like a slot guy. They've been using him on the outside.
Yeah, part of the Lattimore thing is to let Sainstrell move back inside. And since Lattimore's not healthy yet, that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. So they are waiting for Lattimore to come in. And when you talk about covering the slot, remember, that's Devontae Smith a lot of times for the Eagles. The Eagles will just line up twins on one side and put Goddard on the other, or they'll waste Dotson on the other and force you to make those things. I look at all those trends, and I think this is a game where the Eagles assert themselves.
I would pick the Commanders with the spread.
Okay.
But if you made me pick it straight up, I would pick the Eagles.
That 3.5 is...
The 3.5 is a nice, it's a division rivalry. You get the little bit of that hook. Field goal win for the Eagles comes out for the Commanders.
Eagles coming home from Sunday late afternoon in Dallas, and then they have to get back over here. And Sirianni's complaining a little bit about
and this. Even though we know that really Thursday nights aren't any different than any other games.
Right.
There's that whole Thursday nights closer, lower scoring, weird things happen on Thursday nights feeling.
Yeah.
So I would go with the Commanders with the spread, but I do think the Eagles are more likely to win the game and take that lead in the division race. Although, of course, that later on there will be Eagles at Commanders, and Commanders will have the home field advantage in that one, and that's really important.
Right, and that's why the percentages on this. Oh, the winner gets a little edge. They got to face each other again.
Useful title says, it's sad what happened to Emmanuel Forbes. Unless I'm missing something that happened off the field, I think you are talking about the fact that he's terrible.
I agree. I did miss something along the way.
He says, as in his development. Yes, he would, look, here's an interesting, we talk about this every year. You look optimistically at your team as a fan, and they draft guys and you go, well, this guy fills this hole, and this guy fills this hole, and this guy fills this hole. And you have to remember that not all of these guys are going to develop. More of them in the first round will develop. Usually a first-round cornerback will develop. What happened to Forbes is being really bad is an unlikely scenario. But it still happens. You can't just plug rookies in and go, that fills that hole, that fills that hole, that fills that hole, we're good.
Right. And he was in a lot of draft boards overdrafted. Forbes was an odd one. Very lean, skinny guy where you're kind of looking at his traits, not necessarily at his film. So that was a little bit of a weird choice on their point. But yeah, he is out of the lineup. I don't know if he's not healthy right now, but he is benched. It's Noah. I cannot pronounce his last name. Guy played for the Dolphins. Igbenegany out of Auburn. Kind of a journeyman. They've been moving him back and forth from the slot to the outside. Benjamin St. Just. The Frenchman, the Canadian.
Saint-Just, yes.
Saint-Just from Canada is on the other side, and he's adequate, but it's the wide receiver one problem is you've got adequate covering wide receiver one and whoever, and if you mix it up, you're in trouble.
Again, it really sets up for them to win, for the Eagles to win at home, and then the Commanders, once they have Lattimore and home field advantage, to win at home in the second game.
Right.
Because these teams are very evenly matched, I think.
And then both of them make the playoffs.
Yeah, both of them make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Speaking of both of them make the playoffs, let's go to 1 p.m. on Sunday with the 7-3 Ravens at the 7-2 Steelers. Now, of course, DVOA likes the Ravens much more than the Steelers, which is why your playoff odds come out with if the Steelers win, the division becomes a 50-50 battle. If the Ravens win, they win the division 91% of the time. Because not only will they have the much higher DVOA, but they will be 3-1 in the division, and the Steelers will be 0-1 with a head-to-head loss.
Right.
So the Steelers really need this.
Yes, and the Ravens have a sweep of the Bengals, which eradicates them from the information. I think the Steelers have both Bengals games coming up, which creates another randomizing factor in there.
I'm also, I'm staying home from Gillette on Sunday so that I can watch this.
Who do the Patriots have?
The Rams.
Yeah, stay home.
I mean, the Rams are a possible playoff team and a good team to see, but this is a game I need to see.
Right. You don't want to be sitting in the press. You can sit in the press box. You can enjoy the snacks. You can watch the TV. They have a bank of TVs, right?
They have a back row of TVs, yeah, but what's the point?
But that drive is so bad. That drive is not right. It's not like me hopping over to the link. Okay.
One of the things I learned, we're really off topic now. One of the things I learned going to MetLife is, my God, do they empty out MetLife faster than they empty out Gillette because the roads are so much better.
You've got a direct access to the turnpike special.
Yes. Within an hour, that parking lot is completely empty. Whereas I will leave Gillette halfway through the late game and still have a 2.5 mile back up to 495. It's crazy.
It's almost like they put it on a county highway with only one road in and out. It's like a 2-lane.
The Steelers, with a better passing game than their running game, get to attack the Ravens defense that is 4th against the run, but 25th against the pass. Now, I will point out, we've talked about the Ravens dropping interceptions, and I did my little back of the envelope computation this week.
Okay.
Bill Connolly's research from college football, which I found works for the pros too, found that roughly 20% of all passes defensed will turn into interceptions.
All right.
Now, obviously, every play is different. If you go and you analyze, that's why FTN has interception-worthy throws, to analyze when quarterbacks really throw an interception-worthy throw. But just as a back-of-the-envelope computation, roughly 20% of your PDs will turn into interceptions. The Ravens lead the league in passes defensed, but have only 6 picks. So they should have more interceptions. Their pass defense should be better going on in the future.
Yes.
The problem is they're allowing over 100 yards a game to opposing number 1 wide receivers.
That's a problem. And
they're 29th against deep passes. And here comes Russell Wilson and George Pickens.
Right. Who are totally dialed in with each other at this point. And I guess my thought on this is, even if you let him feed as the Ravens, if you shut down everything else, you're probably going to get a win in this game.
Yes, because your offense is so good.
Right.
That even against the Steelers, for example, who's the number 1 quarterback in the league when pressured by DVOA?
Lamar Jackson, right?
It is Lamar Jackson, of course, yes. Plus, the Ravens lead the league in yards after the catch.
Wow.
Despite the fact that they have a fairly high average depth of target, and the Steelers are below average in preventing yards after the catch. So things point to the idea that the Ravens offense should be able to score despite the strengths of the Steelers defense. The thing is that the other way around, it certainly points to the idea that they should be able to pass, especially to Pickens. And this one might be more of a shootout.
I don't know. I don't know if that advantage is enough. You talk about the pass defense. I talk ad nauseum about the penalty differential, which should at some point change, that the Ravens are penalized more than their opponents to such a great degree. And that has contributed to their pass defense as well because of face masking and roughing the passer
DPIs and illegal contacts. And
roughing the passer sometimes is like a tax on being a very good pass rush. Here's your tax, a 15-yard penalty instead of a minus 10 sack, etc. So I don't see it that way. A couple things on the injury report talking about the defense of the Steelers. Alex Highsmith is out, but not only is Zadarius Smith now on the fold, but Nick Herbig.
Not Zadarius, Preston Smith.
Preston Smith, thank you, is in the fold, and so is Herbig. Now I'm going to get the Herbigs mixed up too. He is back from injury. On the other side of
Edge rusher Herbig.
Edge rusher Herbig, not lineman Herbig. I think they're both of them on the Steelers now.
Yeah, both of their names start with N, so it's confusing.
Yes. Thank you, Mom and Pop Herbig. Kyle Hamilton has been working out on the sidelines, but that doesn't sound like a good to go on Sunday situation. Isaiah Likely could be back. He's been limited. He returned to practice. Brent Urban, who's part of the defensive line rotation, is out of concussion protocol. But Hamilton is obviously a problem when
Hamilton is an issue. There's no. I mean, he's very important to the Baltimore defense, especially the Baltimore pass defense. And
right, probably a problem at the end of that Bengals game is you don't have him out there chasing around Jamar Chase at the end when he's like giving you a 70-yard lightning strike.
The line is Ravens -3.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go with DVOA and go with the Ravens -3 as my pick here.
Agreed.
But it's not ridiculous to think the Steelers can win this game, especially in a shootout. Like the idea that the Ravens pass defense Wilson is playing better than Fields was, and the Ravens pass defense is really bad, and particularly bad in places where the Steelers offense is strong. Mm-hmm. So it's not. What would shock me would be if the Steelers win in one of those old school Ravens Steelers 13-10 games. That would shock me.
The 23-20s. Over under is 48.
I think I might even go over that.
Interesting. I might consider that.
Would you take the Ravens or the Steelers?
I'm taking the Ravens. I'm pretty confident the Ravens are the better team, and that we haven't seen them coalesce, and that some of their pass defense problems are a little bit of a distortion.
Now let's go to the big 4 p.m. game. There's a lot of good 4 p.m. is a really good slot this week. Yes. But of course, the biggest one that will be broadcast nationally is the Kansas City Chiefs at 9-0 at the Buffalo Bills at 8-2. This is by far the most likely loss on the schedule for Kansas City.
Oh, yes.
I didn't even bother with playoff odds. The Super Bowl, the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl in 39% of sims where they win and 31% where they lose. The Bills go to the Super Bowl in 20% of sims where they win and 12% where they lose.
That's significant. That's a significant difference on their end of things.
Right, because that's not playoff. That's going to the Super Bowl odds. Hitchhiker's Pie wants to know the 17-0 chances if they win this. I ran it at some point. It's like 15% if they win this game, but the odds of going 17-0 are like 15% if you assume that Andy Reid is not sitting guys.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of people expect that if the Chiefs win this game, mm-hmm. that this is going to be like the Colts in 2009. Right. That they could be undefeated going into their last 2 games,
right,
and sit guys. And by the way, after this game, the next 2 likely losses are weeks 17 and 18, which I believe are at Denver and at Pittsburgh.
Teams that could be like, we need this for the playoffs.
Right.
And Andy will often do a thing like where he only plays Mahomes in the first quarter too.
Right. So I think a lot of people think that we could. I don't think. I mean, I don't know Andy Reid personally, but what I have seen in the media is the commentary is Andy Reid does not care about going 20-0.
Right.
Andy Reid just wants to win the Super Bowl. Right. If he needs to rest his guys, he will rest his guys.
Yeah, and he's going to look at Chris Jones and Travis Kelce in those games. These guys who are in their 30s who are kind of beaten up and probably turn the other way. By the way, we talk about not running playoff odds. You cannot get a prop for the Bills to make the playoffs. You can get the Bills to miss the playoffs at plus 10,000, and you can get the Chiefs to miss the playoffs at plus 25,000 odds. So that's nothing but silly schmuck bait right now. It gives you a sense of how in.
It reminds me, not to get into politics, but when I was on with Gil Alexander last week, he told me about some bettor he knew who made a bet, Kamala Harris popular vote plus 7.5%. And I believe that the odds were that he bet 100,000 and he would win 100. He won the bet. She only lost the popular vote by like 2, not like 7.5. But still, can you imagine losing that? Like, why would you even place that bet?
I'm having psychic pain on a variety of levels right now. I am experiencing blinding headaches in the frontal and rear lobe of my brains from that. Thank you.
Like that would be like putting money on. It would be like putting money on Kansas City right now to make the playoffs. Like you would be
minus
gambling $100,000 to win like $3.
Right, and then crying in your beer when Mahomes gets hurt.
Red Matt says, "Aren't those Kansas City missed the playoffs odds basically a bet on Mahomes getting hurt?" Yeah, but Mahomes get hurt, they still probably make the playoffs with Carson Wentz because they're 9-0. So
yeah, they can grind out a couple of wins over the weak teams. Yeah.
Here's an interesting stat I found. This is remarkable, and people were finding excuses for why this is true, all of which are correct, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Patrick Mahomes is the worst quarterback in the league throwing to the middle of the field this year. And
Jalen Hurts is healthy. How is that possible?
He has the lowest DVOA in the league on passes to the middle of the field. And that's not a criticism of him. Is it because Kelsey hasn't been as good and Rashee Rice got hurt and this and that? Of course it's because of all those things.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Bills are 30th on defense against passes in the middle of the field.
Interesting. And
so something's got to give between those two things when these teams meet each other.
Now, we got a couple of other things that might impact. One is that Juju Smith-Schuster appears to be ready to go. He has been back at practice. He is expected back. Isaiah Pacheco is not expected back, even though he has begun practicing. Also, Wanya Morris was a full participant. Now, Wanya isn't great, but when he's out there, that means
he's better than Kingsley Summit at this point. Yeah.
Kingsley Saxolata. Yes. Meanwhile, on the Bill side, a lot of things to look at here. Keon Coleman is out again with a wrist injury. Amari Cooper is still limited with a wrist injury. Right tackle Spencer Brown, it says that he hopes to play, but he is limited. And Dalton Kincaid is limited with a knee injury. Sean McNerbit on Kincaid, quote, "We'll see how the week goes," which is not a ringing endorsement. So that's 1, 2, 3 of primary targets for Josh Allen, plus his right tackle who are on the list.
Which makes this line a little surprising for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now the Bills are favored by 2 points.
I know. Also, no weather.
With the what?
No weather. It's a mild 50 degree. If anyone's worried about Buffalo weather, you gotta keep track of these things, man.
Yeah, Bill Houston says the Chiefs' left tackle situation bears watching. Morris is shaky and injury prone. I would call Donovan Smith immediately.
Yeah.
Don't know if Donovan Smith has it anymore or wants to.
Right. I mean, I'd call him.
One of the things about call X immediately is you don't know how much X has kept in shape, right? Like,
yeah, especially if X is a lineman. He could have done one of two things, which is,
gotten fat or gotten skinny.
Exactly. A lot of them were like, I'm going to now worry about my health and lose 25, 30 pounds immediately, not ready to play anymore.
Now, you brought up with me the idea that the Chiefs get all the calls, and I looked up, and the Chiefs get as many penalties as their opponents in the second half of late games.
Okay.
But we should note the Bills are very high this year in offensive penalties.
Really?
They commit a lot of offensive penalties. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I forgot to put false starts in DVOA for a couple of weeks for some reason. And then when I finally put them back in, like the Bills dropped by like 3%. Like they've got a lot of offensive penalties this year.
Interesting. That slipped under my radar. And I brought that up because it is sort of an internet conspiracy theory right now, that the Chiefs are getting more calls because the NFL wants the Chiefs to win for whatever reason, whatever Travis Kelce, Harrison Butker, crazy thing that's in your head. And usually I'm trying to point out to people, it's like, yeah, I remember we said the same thing about the Patriots for 15 to 20 years. I would make the joke about it frequently, but you're looking at late and close penalties.
Yes. And the Chiefs are third,
Mm-hmm.
and the Chiefs' opponents are third.
Right, which means there are a lot of late and close penalties being called, probably because the Chiefs are in so many late and close games because they haven't been blowing anybody out this year.
I would take the Chiefs +2.
I was leaning Bills initially, looking at that injury report, looking how many guys are out for the Bills offense, factoring in the idea that, again, it's not going to be 22 degrees and sideways snow, nothing like that. I'm leaning towards, again, the Chiefs as well.
Here's another good 4 p.m. game, and that is the 4-5 Seahawks at the 5-4 49ers. The NFC West is a mess, but someone has to make the playoffs out of there. Okay, Seahawks win.
Yes.
The Cardinals are at 55%. They're on bye.
Yes.
49ers 17, Seahawks 14, Rams 13.
For the division.
Yes.
Okay.
If the 49ers win, it becomes 45 Cardinals, 45 49ers, 8 Rams, 2 Seahawks.
Right.
So the Seahawks have to have this.
The Seahawks, have already lost to the 49ers, so they kind of lose their path to a division title and kind of lose their path to the playoffs if they lose this game, which is a problem because they're not a good football team, really.
The Seahawks, they're 18th in DVOA compared to the 49ers, who the DVOA still loves. 49ers are 5th. They're top 5 in both offense and defense.
And 31st.
And 31st in special teams. The Seahawks running game hasn't been great, but the 49ers run defense has been a weakness this year.
Okay.
And the 49ers defense is also relatively weak on passes up the middle, where Geno Smith has been very good this year.
Right. And Geno has been throwing a million passes this year. He has been passing the lights out. He gets a little break this week. Right tackle Abe Lucas is out of witness relocation program. Lucas has been out all year with an injury. Right tackle has been a disaster area for the Seahawks for most of this year. So that's the good news on that side. Other side, DK Metcalf is on the injury report. No one knows how serious it is. DK is kind of being wishy-washy about it. Not much to report right now on the 49ers front. Kittle and Bosa popped on the injury report. Shanahan was like, they're veterans. They were probably a little nicked up.
Right. And, of course, CMC is back now.
Oh, yes. So we can all go about our lives.
The line in this one is 49ers -6.5.
Oh, that's right there.
I know that is right there.
Right there.
The system doesn't pick. Bill Houston says, how are the 49ers rated so highly in DVOA considering their record? I mean, I'd have to go into it and be like, they have this success rate is this and the yards. But if you look at all their underlying stats are play-by-play, underlying play-by-play is really good. Their losses are generally close, and a lot of it is caused by special teams.
A lot of
special teams are horrible.
A lot of this caused by special teams. They were leading convincingly against the Rams, missed a field goal, made a couple of dumb plays. They were leading convincingly against the Cardinals. Kicker was hurt.
Yep.
And I think Shanahan kind of had a little mini panic attack about that.
And then the missed field goals that almost cost them last week against the Bucs.
Right. And they moved the ball down. I don't know where they are in red zone. You told me they're not as bad at red zone as I think they are.
Yeah, they're not as bad as you think in the red zone, but it is a problem that they kick field goals and then they miss the field goals.
Right. They drive down the field and attempt a 45-yarder, and their success rate's around 50% at it.
I guess if I had to bet, I would bet the 49ers -6.5, but this is not something that I would want to put money in.
No, I would tease it in some way. I think the 49ers are going to win. But again, a team with a terrible kicker, and you're in this situation.
Yeah, actually, the bet I like is under 48.5.
Oh, yeah, do that. Because, it could wind up being, like 26-10, honestly. It really could.
All right, another good 4 p.m. game. 4 p.m. really is the good area.
Yes.
Falcons 6-4 at the 5-5 Broncos. These are two teams that DVOA has as middle of the pack and very opposite. The Falcons are really good on offense and bad on defense and special teams. The Broncos are really good on defense and special teams and bad on offense.
Yeah, the irresistible force, immovable object in Denver.
And Atlanta has no pass rush, and the Broncos are number 1 in ESPN's pass block win rate.
You have a question there? Is there a question coming up?
No, just a comment. Just that Atlanta is going to have a really hard time rushing the passer. Like Knicks is not going to be under a lot of pressure.
No, they only have 9 sacks. And so I was looking a little bit. It's like, well, maybe they should blitz more. Well, I pulled up their raw data. This is the Falcons' raw data when they rush 5+ pass rushers. 55 of 65, 651 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's 114 passer rating and only 2 sacks. So
that's bad.
That's bad. I threw a lot of numbers at you. That's bad. So when they try to blitz, it's just as bad as when they just rush 4 and say, well, at least we got guys back in coverage.
Also point out the Falcons are a high amount of man coverage team, and Bo Nix has a 5% DVOA in man compared to -14 in zone.
Yeah, you're playing into his ability to read it easily and for Sutton to get open for him. Just Sutton.
Yeah. Meanwhile, flipping it around, this stat I thought was really amazing, looking it up on the FTN Stats Hub. Reminder to subscribe to FTN Stats Hub.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins ranks 5th in the league in DVOA when not pressured, and is something like 29th when he is pressured.
A lot of that, I mean, remember week 1, he couldn't move at all. And another part of that is, I'm guessing when he's pressured, it's when everything is kind of falling apart offensively, because they really strive to be a balanced within structured team. So I'm guessing you're seeing better opponents, 3rd and long, significantly there. By the way, Cousins is on the injury report with a right shoulder and a right elbow, limited in practice. But last I checked,
that's his throwing arm.
You need these to throw things.
Red Matt says we have got to give plaudits to Sean Payton for the coaching job in Denver. I will agree with that. And also, I think for the fact that he has coached this team to be very different than the Saints.
Yes.
He has built a team that does defense and special teams with a limited quarterback, which is very different from what he had in New Orleans.
Exactly. I'm impressed by what he's done. There's another guy we're about to talk about in a few minutes. Impressed by what he's done. Ask him and he'll tell you.
Yes. The line is Broncos -2.5.
Oh God. Well, never bet on the Falcons. So
right. Never bet on never bet on Falcons games at all.
Right. No, it's throwing money away.
Yeah. The system likes the Falcons +2.5 and the over 44, but never bet on the Falcons games.
I don't mind the over 44 because I think that with that running game, the Falcons can slow down the pass rush of the Broncos a little bit, but I think the Broncos will move the ball against that team and their lack of pass rush.
The most amazing thing about the Broncos this year is that they were like, we have so much pass rush. We can just flip one of our pass rushers to Arizona, whatever.
Right. Brian Browning, who's been there for years as a veteran, most teams look at that and say, my God, well, we need depth. And we have the 3rd and long package, the NASCAR package. Oh, we got
they were like, nah, whatever.
So many guys. Right.
All right. Last game of Sunday, the 8 p.m. game. Cincinnati Bengals at 4-6 at the 6-3 Los Angeles Chargers. Here are your playoff odds. If the Bengals win, they're at 48%. If they lose, they're at 17%. If the Chargers win, they're at 93%. If they lose, they're at 67%. And the Bengals are a much better passing team than running team this year. But the Chargers defense is much better against the pass than it's against the run. And you talked about giving plaudits. I thought this would be a rebuilding year. So all credit to Jim Harbaugh for getting everyone to buy in very quickly, turning things around, and also to Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, who has done a really great job.
Right. With the caveat that they have faced the Spencer Rattler Saints. The Jameis had all the good taken out of him and threw 3 interceptions. Browns, the Will Levis Titans. There is a little bit of opponent adjustment that might even be beyond what DVOA can handle there. That said,
and I was going to say they're weak against deep passes, which is a strength of Burrow's.
It is the strength of Burrow's, and we all know Burrow and Chase. T. Higgins, by the way, is still in this limited situation. And Orlando Brown is in this. That's a big deal because Orlando Brown at left tackle is in this nether region where he can't get 100% healthy. But I was about to say credit to Harbaugh because when we say, well, they beat this team, they look like they're going to be one of those teams this year. They look like they could have been down there with the Browns and these other teams. Like, what a disappointment there. They're not. They've made themselves a cut above it, so they deserve to win a bunch of these games and be in the playoff picture.
Really interesting matchup in this game.
Yes.
Left tackle Rashawn Slater, one of the best left tackles in the league, against Trey Hendrickson, who leads all active players in pass rush win rate.
Wow.
In other words, leads all people who are not Aiden Hutchinson.
Right.
The Chargers, however, are only 24th in pass block win rate as a team.
Interesting.
And according to the FTN Stats Hub, Justin Herbert has the league's worst DVOA when pressured this year.
Fascinating.
And the second best when not pressured.
Fortunately for Herbert, again, they've been in control of a lot of these games. He's been able to do a lot. He's been asked to do a lot less, and he's risen to that challenge. I looked this up earlier. Chargers games are so out of control late in part because of the opponents they faced, and they run the ball so they're so dedicated to the run that Justin Herbert has only thrown 46 fourth quarter passes this year. That's 31st in the NFL. Herbert has thrown less fourth quarter passes than Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Will Levis, Deshaun Watson, and Bryce Young, and one more fourth quarter pass than Anthony Richardson, Jameis, and Aiden O'Connell. So we're talking about a guy who's been starting every single week, but he's thrown less passes in the fourth quarter than guys with 3 starts, 4 starts. That's because they have been in control of these games. And in the fourth quarter, they're kind of running out the clock. I don't think they're going to be in that position this week.
Actually, that brings up an interesting off-topic point. But first, I will ask you to make a pick. The line is Chargers -1.5.
I'm going with the Bengals coming off their mini bye, backs against the wall. This is the most interesting game, frankly. I mean, Bills Chiefs will be the best game, but it's an AFC Championship game preview, more or less. We know that one of these teams is out. One of these teams, or the Bengals are out, and the Chargers are validated by this game. I'm going with the Bengals.
Yeah, I also think this is a really interesting game. And although the Ravens guy in me says that Bills Chiefs is not necessarily an AFC Championship battle,
it's a playoff.
I mean, the problem is that the Bills and Ravens are going to have to face each other to get the right to face the Chiefs.
Right.
I also like Bengals +1.5.
Yeah.
Here's my off-topic question for you to end today.
Yes.
What was your first response about the Colts deciding to go back to Anthony Richardson after only 2 weeks of Flacco?
I had to go back and edit something I had written, which I was upset about. But it's one of those right decisions for the wrong reasons, because now when you make it and you make it in midweek, it sounds like you are just guessing your way through things.
It really does sound like they have no plan.
Right. And that's the worst. It's better to have a bad plan than no plan.
Yeah. So, but I mean, but this is the right thing for the right thing for that organization.
Yes.
How they got to it does not make you feel hopeful about the decision making in the front office. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a better thing for Sunday too, because I think the Jets are ready to quit. And if you just can run the ball down their throats, maybe with some zone read, they'll quit. But if you give them some sacks and give that defense life and give their offense we can kick field goals, then the Jets might have more life. So just play a primitive game against them and see if they just stop caring at halftime like they did against the Cardinals.
All right, that does it for today's show. Want to thank everybody for watching live and for listening after the fact. Don't forget, by the way, to rate the show, like the show, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, get us followers, help the show out. We appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the MikeTanier.substack.com and the FTN Stats Hub. And we will be back on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern to wrap up all of these games and preview Monday Night Football all in one. Cowboys-Texans, are you excited? It's a big rivalry.
It's a rivalry, yes.
We'll be there Monday at 11 o'clock to do that. Until then, thank you all for listening to the Schatz and Tanier FTN Fantasy NFL podcast. So long, everybody.